gorilla stomping in a zoo. Check the vocals, animals gather right.
Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. Where on today's video, I'm finally going to get to tell you guys what our super secret project is. And the reason it's been super secret up to this point in time is because our kids have a tendency to sometimes watch our videos when they're on their own. So we may not be there to intervene if they're about to find out information we don't want them to know just yet. And this surprise and secret would be an example of such a situation. So me and my wife, we kind of want to keep that thunder to ourselves, you know, to give them the surprise in person, tell them what's happening, instead of them watching the video and hearing me say it in the video and kind of getting that watered down surprise effect. So what we're doing, we kept it on the down low, kept it a bit mysterious and vague, but finally, I'm going to tell you guys what it is. And we'll tell the kids what it is too before this video comes out. So what's happening is, in a previous couple of videos, you've seen me working on an enclosure, as I referred to it, right? And I've told the kids that this enclosure was an extension of the chicken coop, a chicken run. An extra practice chicken run is pretty much what I told the kids. So yeah, little white lie, just to keep the secret intact, but I think it's going to be worth it. Because what we're getting is rabbits. Pet bunnies for the kids. They have been head over heels for bunnies for months now. Especially my daughter, she's been watching videos and talking about bunnies. And of course, one of her best friends at school got bunnies. So, you know, the heat is on now on me and my wife, you know. My friend got bunnies, I want bunnies. Well, I think we can manage to accommodate that request. So we're going to get the kids bunnies, but we're not starting a rabbitry. Like, these aren't going to be meat rabbits or anything like that. These are strictly pet rabbits at this point in time. And as such, they're going to be living outdoors. And we want them to have a happy, healthy life and to stay comfortable and be warm and all that, so to have adequate protections. So step one of that protection is the enclosure that I started building, and that's going to be 4 posts with some bracing and all that stuff, with hardware cloth and a roof and all that stuff. So that's like, you know, a basic enclosure and protection, but that's not going to protect them from driving rain and snow and all that. So for that purpose, I need to build a rabbit house, all right? And I've been toying with ideas and blueprints for the house. I think I've come up with something that'll work, and it'll also offer a little bit of opportunity for future expansion. So I'll leave it at that. But basically, here we are. I'm in the shed. I picked up some supplies at Home Depot yesterday. This little bit of supplies cost me $500. There's only like 3 sheets of plywood, some fiberboard, some insulation, and 6 2x4s. So that'll give you an idea of where lumber is still at these days. But all that aside, I got my supplies here, so I need to start working on the rabbit house. And in order to make this lumber go a little bit further, I'm taking those 2x4s and I'm going to be ripping them in half. And so I'll end up like 1.5 by 1 3/4 boards. And I'm going to use that as the framing for the rabbit house. And I'm going to be insulating it with the rigid foam and then plywood on the outside and all the finishing touches therein. Alright, so that's what I'm going to be beginning today. I need to get outside, set up my table saw, and start ripping these 2x4s down. And as well, I'm going to get the plywood sheets cut into length as well, and that fiberboard. I don't know if you guys recognize that white fiberboard, but I used it in my chicken coop build as a floor. And it's worked out so well for me, and it's so easy to clean, that I've decided that I'm going to use it as a flooring for the rabbits as well. And I think that'll work out very nicely, actually. So with all that said, you now know what this super secret project is all about, and what we're building for the kids, and I hope they enjoy this surprise as much as me and my wife have enjoyed keeping it and building up to this moment. And I hope you guys enjoy the video series that will follow now in building this rabbit enclosure. Alright, so I think that's pretty good for an intro. Hopefully you guys are as excited as we are. It's a beautiful day outside, 26 degrees, a little bit of wind, so I may have to kick you guys into some music at times just to cover up wind noise. But for the most part, I'm going to get outside, do my my cuts out there to keep sawdust to a minimum, keep my garage clean, and there's nothing else to say other than let's get to work. Outside we go. Alrighty, so now that I got my 2x4s stripped in half, albeit they might have been a little bit off here and there, but I think I mostly got them down the middle. Now I need to finalize in my head most of the measurements, because what I'm making is a rabbit house that has 4 compartments in it. And I want each rabbit to have enough space in each compartment to be comfortable in turning around and all that, and potentially have enough space for offspring as well. If we do end up mating the rabbits down the road, I want to have room for the kits and the mother to be able to fit into one of these compartments. And as well, if they want to buddy up during the winter and share heat, I want a compartment that's big enough for 2 rabbits to fit into, and they can huddle and cuddle together. So I initially figured I was going to do something 6 feet long by 2 feet wide. And I wanted to stick to that 2 foot wide because I need to fit it in through the door of the enclosure when the enclosure is done. So if I'm getting into like a 3 foot deep one, then obviously you're into you know, something that's probably wider than the door that I'm going to make. So I got to keep it realistic in size. So what I'm thinking in my head is 7 feet in length and 2 feet in width or depth. That way each compartment will be almost, you know, minus a little bit of trim here or there. It'll probably be about 21 inches in depth, and then at 7 feet you divide that by 4, you end up with 21 inches as well. So each compartment will end up being 21 by 21. So just a little bit shy of 2 feet by 2 feet, which I have seen suggested in some videos. But I think those videos also don't take into account that these rabbits will be open to exit the house and go into the enclosure and play around out there. Most of the rabbit cages I've seen online are more directed at rabbitries, and pretty much you put the rabbit in there and they live there and that's it. So they want like 2 feet by 2 feet in that instance. So I think 21 by 21 is plenty of space in each compartment. So I'm going to be doing my house 7 feet long, 2 feet in depth. So I'll start doing those measurements now and get out at the chop saw. But I'm going to do my 2 foot wide cuts on the plywood now and the fiber flooring. Because what I want to do is sandwich that fiber flooring between 2 pieces of plywood and clamp them down pretty good. That way when I do my 2 foot wide cut down the middle, everything should be exactly the same. So that's my hope and my goal. We'll see how that pans out. I'll get these benches outside get the plywood and fiberboard and everything all lined up, and then we'll clamp down a guide rail and hopefully make a good cut. So that's the plan. Let's see how it works out. Alrighty, so as you can see here, we got 2 pieces of plywood sandwiching the fiber board. Everything is lined up very nicely. So I got a good collection of clamps here now. So I'm going to go around and get all the edges clamped like such. And we should have it good and secure then to run the skill saw down the length of it once I get everything marked out. So I'm just going to go and do the clamps here now, and we'll get to getting set up for the cut. Alright, so at this point in time I got all my measurements finished. I've measured 7 feet up to this mark, and I'm going to remove this side because this plywood here has some grooves and damage to it. Just you know, not as good as it could be like the rest of the board. So I'm going to take this foot off the edge, and then I'm going to split it down the middle. So take the end off here first, and then we'll reclamp. Alright, next I'm going to do our long 7-foot cut here now. Since it's a longer cut, I don't want to risk so much my hand waving back and forth when I'm using the saw. So I'm going to put a little guide rail in there. It's got a little piece of cedar, and it looks to be nice and straight with the line that I've drawn. So I'm going to clamp that in place so that I can use my right hand to go down the length of it. I'm a righty, so I want to approach it from the right side. So now that our larger cuts are done, I'm going to take the clamps off this, get these pieces brought inside. Alright, so it's not going to be a light rabbit house, that's for sure. Even just that bit of plywood alone, there's 2 sheets of plywood there, and that's just to do a floor and part of a wall. So, you know, put all that together, we still got another sheet there to cut. So it's going to be a lot of weight. So, but that's a good thing with all the wind and everything that we get. It's good to be able to know it's not going to blow away in a hard gale. You know, not so much blow away as blow over, right? So anyways, that much is done. Now we got to work out the rest of the framework and start cutting up those 2x4s, which are now kind of 2x2s, and start putting some kind of frame together. And we're going to start with the bottom up, so we'll start with the floor, okay? So I'll get the chop saw ready, start working out some measurements, we'll come back and start laying it out. So before I get to cutting, I just want to bring you guys into my line of thinking on how this is going to go. So this is one of the 2x4s that I stripped in half. Now with the little bit extra that the blade takes off and me probably being a little bit shaky or holding it away from the guard, some of these widths could be off a little bit. But we got our factory edge here, is 1.5 wide, and I want that to be like sideways onto the board so that this is exactly 1.5 inches deep, and then this insulation will fit down perfectly into that. So that's the idea. But that leaves us with 1.75 inches or so that needs to be accommodated for when we're doing our cross supports, right? So I'm going to have like 7 foot long here and 7 foot long on the bottom with a total of 24 inches. You got to subtract the width of these for the support joists across. So if these are 1.75 inches a piece, that's a total of 3.5 inches for a top and bottom that I need to take off of my 24, so it would be 20.5, right? Yeah, so 20.5 inches should be the length of my supports. So that's the measurements I'm going to go with. I'll take 2 long ones, cut them off at 7 feet. The rest I'll do, I don't know how many supports I'm going to do, probably 6. So I want 1 on either side of each compartment. So if I got 4 compartments, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5, we'll see. I'll work it out on paper a little bit before I do my final cuts, because obviously with wood being expensive as it is, it'd be pretty expensive to make a wrong cut. So I'm going to work all this out off camera a little bit, come back, but I'm pretty sure we'll do 20.5. It's just a matter of how many supports I'm going to want on the way down. So yeah, that's it. 2 7-foot pieces and either 5 or 6 20.5 inch pieces. That's what we're going with. Now that we got all of our cuts done, it's time to do a little test fitting. So I'm going to choose the side out that I want. Even though it's going to be on bottom, I'm going to put the nicest side down. Like that. And then we're going to lay out our 2x4s that we just cut. 7-foot section will go this way. And a 7-foot section this way. And we're going to want 5 supports. Now these are going to go every 21 inches, remember? So I'm just going to guesstimate it for now, just for the test fit. Okay, so that's somewhat what it's going to look like, and that looks good. Alright, so I'm going to get to assembly on this part here now and get this much done, and hopefully that won't take too long. But I am going to glue and screw everything as I usually do, just to keep everything bug and watertight as best as possible. Alright, let's get to that. Alright, so let's get these pushed out of the way. Take this one back. Now, get some glue down. And get our board lined up. Smear it around a little. Now, I'm going to get some clamps. I'm going to get that board held in place. There we are. And the edges are lined up nicely. So I'm going to tip this up and screw it in from behind. There we go, this should be pretty good. Put one more in the middle here. There we are, that one is secure. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. So it's at this point now where I'm going to mark all my 21-inch centers. So I'll make a mark at 21. Let's keep that there. 42. 53. Or no, 63. and then 84 is just going to be the end. And I'll do the same thing on this side. 21 inches, 42, 63, and then that's the end. Okay. So let's get the supports on now. So now I'm at the point of insulating the floor. I'll measure these off, get the insulation fit down into them, and then we'll be ready to cap it and put on the flooring. So let's just get on into it. So now that I got the insulation in, just a last minute decision, I decided I'm going to throw a little bit of vapor barrier on this, just where the house is going to be on the ground. At least starting out it's going to be on the ground, so to keep the frost from coming out of the ground into the coop and carrying potential moisture in and all that stuff. I'm just going to put a little layer of vapor barrier. Now this is probably overkill, but you know what? I did it for the chickens, I'll do it for rabbits. Alright, and this is double folded, so I just cut the width and the length is fine. I'm just going to get a staple gun, put a few temporary staples in that. Just to hold it in place. Like I say, this is not necessarily not necessarily a step that you would need to do, but I'm up here in these Canadian frigid weather and climate, so vapor barrier is kind of a regular thing with our buildings, so might as well do it with a rabbit house. Alright, just enough to hold it in place. So then I can go along and trim the edges. There we are. So now that that's done, I'm going to cap off the floor. And so the reason for the vapor barrier, by the way, is basically if cold, frigid air, yet partially humid, comes up underneath the flooring from the ground, then it'll condense on the vapor barrier itself and then dry out with the air circulation in amongst it. Whereas if this wasn't here, the moist air would continue up onto the wood and condense on the wood into water droplets, absorb into the wood, and cause rot. Alright, so that's the idea behind the vapor barrier, is that it's a surface where that cold, frigid, humid air can condense, deposit its water, and then the air circulation from any nooks and crannies in and out will dry that water and remove it out before it gets a chance to cause rot. Now, the wood on the outside is going to be susceptible, but this should lessen the effect on it and keep everything okay. And I may raise this up off the ground a little bit in the future as well, so that bottom board then would not even be in contact with the ground, and it'll be a full, nice circulating air system to keep all the wood dry and keep it from rotting. Alright, so these are some of the things you got to think about when you're building these days, because the materials are so expensive. You want to build it right the first time, and that's what I try to do here. Doesn't necessarily mean I achieve it, but I do try to build it right the first time, because I do go by the saying, pay the price or buy it twice. Right, so that's why instead of just building this little house for 2 bunnies and probably costing half the price, I don't want to have to repurchase if I'm going bigger. So I'm just going to do a 4-compartment rabbit house to begin with, and in that way I'll kind of be future-proofed up to a point, you know, and then I don't need to rebuy what I had already bought and to expand on and tear it apart and stuff like that. So it's all about future planning, where you see yourself going. And I want this stuff to last. I want it to last longer than I last. Now that might be unrealistic for having building materials out in the elements, how long they'll last. But you know what? I'm going to try. and you know, build a little infrastructure legacy here. So it is what it is. I'm going to overbuild it or build it as good as it should be. I don't know. You choose which one you think it is. If it's overbuilt or is it built correctly. It might be neither of those, but you know, I'd like to think it's one of those. Alright, so we'll cap this off. I'm not going to worry about any acoustic sealant or anything here. I'm just going to let the weight of the wood and the flooring and everything just compress this enough, and it'll be almost like a little washer in between levels here. So that's my ideas. The vapor barrier does extend all the way to the edge, right? So there's nothing here for it to come up through into the floor. Anyways, enough about that. On to securing the floor, and then our floor platform will be done. All right, so let's get that in place. And I'm just going to lift it in place with the fiberboard already on it as well, unless there's a better side. Yeah, there is a better side below. I'll put the better side down, or better side off the paint. And this here, smooth side up for the fiberboard. And this is just fiberglass paneling. There's a big 8x4 sheet of it that I got at Home Depot, so it should be accessible to you guys. And I'll get that all squared up on top here now. Alright, so that's square to my likings. So I'm going to begin securing it down. So now at this point, we have our base pretty much finished. So I'm going to put this up on stands, just to make it easier on my back and all that good stuff. So let's just get this up into place. And you can feel the weight in it already, like it's going to be heavy. So it should be interesting getting it up in place when the time comes. Alright, so that's a pretty good workable height here now, right? So shouldn't hopefully be too much bending or anything. And I can, if I want to, I can sit in my little roll around chair that I was using when I did the truck brakes. And the only thing is it's in behind that plywood right now, so I got to get it out. But I can manage that. Also off camera, I took my plane and I just tied it up a few edges where I may have veered off a little bit with the skill saw when I was cutting it. So I took off a little bit of excess, probably less than 1/8, just in this little area here. And everything else seems to be flush. So I think we should be pretty safe from here on out. I say we're exactly at 2 feet by 7. All right, so 2 by 7 is the current dimensions. So what's next, you might ask? Well, what's next is some walls. All right, I need some walls in the back, front, sides, all that. Walls are going to be a variable height. What I'm thinking is probably a 2-foot tall wall on the front, and then a 1.5-foot wall in the back. So then I'll have a little bit of a slanted lean-to roof. All right, same as what I did on my bus shelter down there. It turned out really good. So that way I'll just have that little 6-inch drop over the 2 feet to the back, and that'll help rain and snow and stuff just slide off and head off the roof. Alright, so that's my idea. I just got to come up with exactly how I'm going to frame it. The rear wall is going to be pretty easy because there's no entrances or windows, nothing. It's just the wall. So that's an 18-inch wall is all I'm making there. Alright, so nothing spectacular. But yeah, that's about it. Time to start thinking about the walls. I'll get back to you when I got it all ready to rock and I'm ready to make some cuts, and we'll start piecing this together. So far so good. I'm liking it. Nice and smooth, clean surface. Easy to clean. That's the way I like it. Alright, so I just wanted to bring you guys inside my mind for a second and let you know what I'm thinking. Because you're probably thinking the same thing. One thing I did off camera just then, I marked my 21-inch marks. So, like right here would be a full spot for a rabbit. Okay, and that's lots of space. So next, I just need to think about height. How high am I going to go? And 2 feet high from the decking would be to here. But what I'm thinking is that I want a 2-foot piece of plywood to cover down on the side of the platform as well. So this platform that I've made now is 2.5 inches in thickness, okay? So I need to take that 2.5 off of my 24 total height, so that 2 foot of plywood will go down and cover that as well as the sidewall, right? So that brings me down to 21.5 of height for the sidewall. And then I'm going to have a header and a footer, which are 1.5 inches each. So that's 3 inches more that I need to take off the stud height. So 21.5 minus 3, 18.5. So my studs, for the front anyways, should be 18.5. For the rear, I'm looking at exactly 6 inches in difference. So the rear should be 12.5. Alright, so 12.5 there plus the offset. That should work out perfect, okay? So my front will end up being 2 feet in total height, whereas the wall part of it is only going to be 21.5. This side, the wall part is only going to be, what, 15.5, is it? So, yeah, 12.5 plus the 3, 15.5. So that is the dimensions I'm going to use for the front and back walls. I'm going to start with the back wall. So as I said, that one's going to be, the support studs on that are going to be 12.5. And as far as what I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. So I'm going to go out to the miter saw, cut off 5 studs at 12.5, and then I need 2 runners that are full 7 feet. That's the cuts I need right now. Let's do it. Alright, so we got our cuts finished for the rear wall. say this is good and sturdy, okay? I ain't light. So 7-foots are cut, studs are cut. One thing we can do real quick is we'll line these up on their proper side. Alright, let's try that again now. Measurement, we should come out to, is it 18 we're going to end up at? There we go. Like 18 and an eighth, we're fine with that. Alright, so that worked out good. I guess now we can get to assembling it. I'm trying to decide what kind of layer I want underneath this against the flooring to prevent water from getting in there. And I think I might just go with some standard silicone caulking. And I'll put a bead of that down, then the board, and then build onto that. But I think I will assemble this little frame before I even stand it up there. So yeah, let's build this little wall. So I'm just laying things out. I'm following the lines that I drew on the base, so that everything is all lined up properly. Alright, so if you're doing something similar to this and you're at this point and you want to just go ahead and start throwing screws in, you're more than welcome. I'm a big fan of glue, so I'm going to be applying that as I go as well. So one thing for you to note now while I get into assembly is where I ripped these 2x4s in half, they're less than 2x2 right now. So they're very prone to splitting, but I don't only want to just put one screw in. I still want 2 screws to prevent these from twisting. The glue would do that, but because it's so small, and I'm going to be putting 2.5-inch screws into this, I don't want it splitting. So I'm definitely going to be pre-drilling here. Pre-drilling is a good habit to get into overall for any fine work that you're doing. But for me, I'm just going to pre-drill with this instance right here. And there we are, that's pre-drilled. So what I'm going to do, put a little dab of glue in there, and I'm going to actually put that first leg on. So, I got my brand new bottle of Donkey Kong glue. And just put a little dab there. Nothing too crazy. Now I just gotta remember which way I wanted this. I believe it was like so. Try not to get glue everywhere. There we are, joined with no split. That's the way I like it. Alright, moving on. I'll pre-drill some more here now. I'm just going to do a few more now while I'm at it. Keep the momentum going. There we are. Time for more glue and screws. I think it's about time for these gloves to come off again. Two for you. Two for you. Two for you. Two for you. Okay, time for a dab of glue. So that's our footer done. Line that up, size it up, make sure it's good, which it is. Perfect. So now I will get the top header on this, pre-drill and assemble, and be right back with you after I do that. And there we go. We got our back wall framing assembled and ready to install onto the base. Unfortunately, today's time is running out. I only got a few minutes left on the memory card there, and it's time for supper. And I haven't eaten yet today, so I'm pretty hungry at this point. And my wife and kids should be back in town any minute as well. They were out for the weekend, so thankfully they're coming back, and we'll have supper together and call it a day. So I hope you guys enjoyed the project so far. Now that you're in the loop on what exactly we're doing, hopefully you get a similar level of excitement as we do, because getting this together is definitely a priority right now, but especially the enclosure. That's a big deal. We got to get that done. Just waiting on that heavy equipment to arrive and get to work. Anyways, that's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. And hopefully this is probably going to be a long video, so if you stayed to this point, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys very much, and again, hopefully you enjoyed it. So continue and come along with us as we build this rabbit enclosure and get some pet rabbits hopefully soon. It's going to be a wild adventure. We're gonna have some fun. Alright, so until next video, hope you're happy, hope you're healthy, take care of each other, and peace out.